Hello, hello. This is
Hello.
How are you, Rachel?
I'm well. I'm very well. It's good to hear your voice.
Wonderful. Same here. Same here. And I'd just like to give a shout out to our graduate community. Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Jackson, your graduate engagement lead. And for the second month, I am delighted to be having a conversation with one of us. I am talking with Rachel Hollander, Reverend Rachel Hollander from the class of 2009, and she is graciously joining me to talk about her voyage and her many hats to expressing her ministry in the world. She's an extremely talented and gifted person, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that she has been able to manifest her own very clear vision of what that looks like. And I know a lot of us out there are, working in jobs that we might not necessarily think of as ministerial with a capital M, but as Rachel exemplifies, it's all part of the pot. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you in that conversation, Rachel.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a journey.
Great. All right. Well, why don't we start out? Love to ask you, if you could just say a little bit about yourself and what your ministry actually is right now. And just tell folk a little bit about how you came to One Spirit, what brought you within the walls of Seminary, and what did you like best about Seminary? So we'll start with that.
Yeah, wow. Well, it's a very long story, which I will definitely condense. But I was born and raised in a very Reformed Jewish family, so we were very open-minded, and I began to realize at a very young age that God was much bigger than the temple I sat in. And so I started doing exploration of different world religions and different temples and different paths, and just sort of like trying to find where I fit with God the most. And what I kept finding was that God was everywhere I was, and I was everywhere God was. And so it was really an awesome thing. And so when I moved to Alaska in 2000, I was introduced to a science of mind philosophy, a religious science church, the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. And I spent about 8 years just taking classes, and I became a practitioner. And what I really liked about it was that there was no dogma. It was very open and very accepting to all paths. And then I decided, after being a practitioner for a couple of years, I was like, well, I want to be a minister. And so I explored Holmes Institute, which is the school that's ascribed to the Science of Mind community. And I just found it to be a very heady experience, and I really wanted a more heart-based experience. And One Spirit's ads kept showing up in Science of Mind magazines, and I kept looking at them going, wow, that looks really great. But it's not part of Science of Mind, so I can't do that, and I kept poo-pooing it and putting it aside. And then I gathered a group of about 10 of my most powerful spiritual visioners together, and we did a visioning process, Michael Beckwith's visioning process. And 8 out of the 10 people, without any prompting, any knowledge, or, any forewarning, all got a visual of One Spirit's logo. 8 out of the 10 people all said, I see a tree. I see a tree surrounded by water reflected. And so finally I took out One Spirit's logo and I said, did you see this? And they said, yes. And I thought, well, thank you, God. So that guided me to One Spirit. And unfortunately, one of the sad parts, I guess, although it's not really sad in the long run, it was sad in the moment, was I discovered that the Science of Mind community is actually somewhat dogmatic in that they would not acknowledge my going to One Spirit. They would not acknowledge me as a minister, being ordained through One Spirit. And so I realized it was time to move on. And, we all grow up. We all spend time with our families, and we all learn, and then we all grow up and move out. And God was telling me, you know what, you got everything you needed here. You got everything you needed from here. Now you and I are going to go on our own journey. And so when I got ordained and graduated from One Spirit, I knew that a whole new path was opening. And originally when I started at One Spirit, my vision was to go into prison ministry. I was very clear that I was doing prison ministry and that I would never do weddings. That was the funny part. I was like, I'm not going to do any weddings. I'm just going to do prison ministry. And in the 5 years since I've been ordained, my prison ministry has definitely gotten backburnered. I've done about 30 weddings, which has been a pleasure. I love doing weddings now. And what I realized a couple of years ago was Spirit saying, it's time for you to do a center of your own. And so I will share that, like, my role model, my spiritual role model in life is Brother Francesco, St. Francis of Assisi. And I got to go there. I got to go to Assisi and walk his steps the September after I became ordained at One Spirit. That was the plan. Like in January of 2009, I said, I'm going to Assisi in the fall. I got ordained, graduated in June, and went there in September, and was very clear that his path, not his dogmatic religious path, but his spiritual path, his inner walk with God, that was the walk that I was being called to do. And so as I developed the ideas for the center, my business partner and I were talking about, well, what elements do we want? And we want stones involved. We want ritual involved. We want stones, little things like I want to greet people as they come in. I don't jive with the whole minister hiding in the back room and making a grand appearance on stage. It's boots on the ground for me. I want to be in the room. I want to greet everybody, and I want to be with everybody, and I want our place to be simple and the experience to be very relatable. And I credit One Spirit for giving me the strength to say yes to every vision that I got. Like what I get from Reverend Diane and especially from Reverend David and from so many there is listen. God's telling you what to do. Just listen and trust that, because that's the path that you're going. So very rambling, long answer to your question.
No, it's wonderful, and it reminds me of the class that's going on right now. The living our calling and receiving the calling is certainly, allowing ourselves to receive the calling is certainly a big part of that. So I appreciate. I'm sure people will resonate and appreciate with the listening piece. And it sounds like you've had a lot to listen to. That there have been a lot of messages, and so I'm curious. There's so many different pieces here. Knowing your background, and there are a number of One Spirit grads who have started spiritual centers or are at the helm of spiritual centers, and that's a small subset of you. And I'm just curious to know, how long did it take for that vision? From the time that you were making those affirmations that you just said, if you want stones, you want to be able to greet people at the door, to when you opened your doors. If you could just tell us briefly what that trajectory was.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that my business partner Heather and I realized early on was we didn't have a mothership to support us. Like most churches are affiliated with a larger church synod or a family or a convention of some kind. And because we were doing this, we were like going to be this orphan in the storm, kind of no mothership. And so what we first started doing was I had left Alaska in 2010 to go to San Francisco for a year and did some speaking at a couple of spiritual centers there and some music and some singing, and then moved to Boise, Idaho for a year and spent some time at a Science of Mind center there. And it was really when we decided to leave Boise and come back to Anchorage that I was very clear. I'm like, we are creating a space. And so we always joke that of our business relationship, I'm the yang and Heather's the yin. And so she was like, well, we need to get a business license and we need to be a nonprofit, 501c3, and we need to do this, we need to do that. And I'm saying, let's just open the doors. Let's just find a space and open the doors, and people will come and we'll sing. And she's like, yeah. Not going to happen. And so we left Boise actually 2 years ago yesterday, October 26, 2012. We hit the road to drive home to Anchorage. And the drive from Boise to Anchorage was the plotting and the planning. That's where we started working on the name. And we just started looking around outside the car, and it was like, we could call it Buffalo, we could call it Bison, we could call it Mountains, we were like just throwing all kinds of names around. And I said, well, I want the word spirit in it, and I want some kind of reference to rocks. And so we Googled to see if there was a spirit rock, and there was, and a cornerstone, and there was. And so we were like just throwing things around. And then at one point, Heather said, well, what about Spirit Stone? One word, Spirit Stone, Spiritual Center. And I was like, that's it. That's it. And so I'm the spirit, she's the stone. And so we ended up in Anchorage on around November 5th. And I was saying, we'll open the doors on Thanksgiving. Actually, one of our classmates, Jennifer, I met up with Imani in New York in October. And she said, she's like, open your doors on Thanksgiving. It would be awesome. And so I had this great vision. We're going to open the doors on Thanksgiving. And Heather's looking at me going, no, we're not. We have all this business plan to do. We have to create we have to make a board of directors, and we have to do all this paperwork. And I thought, this is why I have a hard time living in the world, because all of that stuff. So she said, trust me, let me do all of that stuff. Start planning for February. And I said, okay. So we negotiated, and what I started planning was a big fundraising concert with local musicians from here in Anchorage, people that a lot of people know. There's a wonderful musician here named Melissa Mitchell. I'm going to do a big shout-out. She's on the edge of being a nationally known person. She's amazing. Everybody check out Melissa Mitchell. And a couple local musicians that I knew that would be a great house band to back me up and to back other musicians up. Colleen Kodik is another one. And I just got and a women's band called Outskirts. And I just was like, let's put together a big fundraising concert, a night of music, make it a love offering, a suggested like $10, but if you want to give more, great. And to let people know this is going to be the seed money for Spirit Stone. And then we'll have our first service the next morning.
Oh, my.
So Heather,
okay.
Yeah. So Heather got all the paperwork done. Everything was signed, sealed, delivered. By January 1 of 2013, we were established as a business in Anchorage, a religious organization called Spirit Stone Spiritual Center. We had our license and everything set up. And then we had, a month and 10 days to advertise. And people came to this concert and, they were giving us much more than $10. We had, I believe the next morning we were able to announce at our first service that we had in savings, I think it was $2,800, which was an amazing start, considering the community, considering Anchorage is small, considering it was February and it's dark and cold. And people came out and just supported us and were really excited about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And so we started out doing every other Sunday, and then people basically said, we want more. So for, I believe it was March and April, how did we do this? No, I think we went through 2013 just doing every other. And then we started doing special things, like we would do a movie day where we would rent the room we were in for an afternoon, and we would watch, I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but there's this whole thing about spiritual cinema. And to me, all movies are spiritual. Like, I think Wizard of Oz is the most spiritual movie of all time. And so
I've been a member, actually, of Spiritual Cinema Circle for about a decade, but I do agree. Yeah.
And their movies are great. And I wanted to expand it into, like, well, what about movies we see every day, like The Matrix or like Wizard of Oz, these bigger movies. And so we watched movies, like we watched Cloud Atlas and we watched Life of Pi, and movies that you'd see in the theater and try to and I was just offering the opportunity to say, can you see the spirituality? I mean, Life of Pi is a little obvious, but like in Cloud Atlas, where is the spiritual connection there? And of course we watched Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, which is Franco Zeffirelli's 1973 movie about Brother Francesco, which I saw at age 10, which I knew at that moment, that's my guy. And so we watched that. And then we did an amazing All Saints gathering last year on November 1st. I lost 2 beloved friends last year unexpectedly, and I was grieving, and I knew other people were moving through grief experiences, so we did an All Saints gathering where we invited people to bring altar items that represented the folks in their lives, whether it was recent or years ago. And we created this container where people could tell stories of those they miss and why they changed their lives and who these people were to them, and names were invoked, and it was just beautiful. And then in January of this year, we did a vision boarding where everybody could come together and create vision boards for 2014, and we had crafts galore. The room exploded into magazines and glue sticks, and it was awesome. And then by, February, March, we were doing services every Sunday. And in the summer, we slowed that up a little bit, but now we're back to every Sunday. And we grow. We've gone from, 9 or 12 people to, between 20 and 30 people, and that keeps growing and morphing and changing. And
well, I listened to one of your services on YouTube, and one of the things that I heard more than any was so much laughter, and I appreciated that. It sounds like you all are having a lot of fun in spirit, and I will say that from that story, and thank you very much for telling us the trajectory. You mentioned about listening, and it struck me that you listen not only to spirit, but spirit through your business partner, in terms of the waiting until February, and I appreciated that having a partner, having someone to move into this kind of spiritual endeavor with you is something that sounds like it was an important piece of it.
She's my ground wire. Like, I would totally be off the charts if I didn't have her to say, come back down, it's okay.
That's great.
But yeah, definitely. Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say on our website, we have all the links to all of my talks, and that's a big piece of it is laughter. I really love people to get the message. It doesn't have to be stern, it doesn't have to be learn this lesson, it can be through laughter, and it can be through stories. And so, and we have people, Jennifer, this is what's so exciting. There are people listening to my talks. There's somebody in Hong Kong now listening. There's people in Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, all over the country. My mom in Ohio listens. And that's thrilling. It's just thrilling.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. What made me particularly interested in talking with you, Rachel, was something that you wrote in your class notes last month, and I mentioned this to you. You wrote, in February of 2013, I affirmed that in a year my life would be 2/3 ministerial work and 1/3, quote unquote, regular layperson employment. And that exact thing happened in February of 2014. And, as I started our conversation with, I'm sure, like me, that there are many One Spirit grads out there who are, in the everyday workaday world, which I know you previously were in, and might be interested in hearing how that percentage shift happened. If you can tell us in brief sort of what that line was like and what your 2/3, 1/3 looks like right now. What is your regular layperson employment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I joke that right now I'm plate spinning because I'm doing a lot of different work. But a year ago, I was working as a sign language interpreter, which I've done for over 20 years, and working part-time at my chiropractor's office, and then doing Spirit Stone as sort of this, I hate to use the word hobby, but people were like, well, you're not getting paid, right? And it was like this sort of judgment on what Spirit Stone meant to me. It was this like side thing that I was doing. And it really wasn't a hobby to me. It was just, to me, Spirit Stone was the most important thing I was doing. even though it wasn't income generating, it was the reason I was alive. And so I affirmed at that time, I said, you know what, in a year, this is going to flip, and I'm going to be doing more ministerial work than income generating layperson work. And this past February, a year later, I was able to get hired by a wonderful agency here in Anchorage called Alaska Child and Family, which does both residential psychiatric treatment for kids and also foster care and wraparound services. And I was hired on the residential side of things as their minister. They have a department as part of the agency called the Spiritual Life Department. So the kids are served through recreational activities. They have school. They have all kinds of different activities. And one part of their experience is the spiritual life. And so we provide them with sweat lodge experiences and labyrinth walks and chapels on Sundays and music meditation gatherings and creativity. And, you know, how amazing to work in an agency that actually has a department called Spiritual Life, and even more amazing to have my job title, my work title be Spiritual Life Minister. And so I still interpret part-time, and I still work at my chiropractor's part-time, and I work as this Spiritual Life Minister part-time, and I do Spirit Stone. And what's amazing about Spirit Stone is that it expands out. So I also do counseling. I also do weddings. I also do prayer support. So it's like my life is actually more than just 2/3 and 1/3. It's like 8/3. It's as many thirds as I can fit. You know, it's like the pie is just getting so big. I just definitely feel that ministry moves into everything I do. Even when I'm interpreting, the students I interpret for, most of them know that I'm a minister. And so I'll be interpreting for them, and then after class they'll say, oh, by the way, you know, can you hold me in prayer about such and such? Or can you, you know, hold my mom in prayer because she's moving through this, you know. And so it's like I'll finish interpreting, and then the minister hat comes right back on. So I don't think it ever comes off. That's what I was telling somebody the other day, is that the minister hat never comes off. Other hats may go on top of it. But the minister hat is glued. It's like affixed onto my head.
Beautiful way of seeing it. Core identity, I guess, is what I'm hearing from that.
Yes, yeah. Oh, and you know, the most pleasurable thing, I think, one of the most pleasurable things this year was last May I got to officiate my nephew's wedding. I got to officiate the wedding of my nephew and now niece, and it was the first time I got to be Reverend Rachel in front of my entire family and extended family. And, you know, there was a lot of mixed feelings because being raised Jewish, they didn't really understand what kind of minister am I? Did I leave the flock? Who have I become? And so I did the wedding ceremony with my Interfaith stole on and my ministerial robes, and my nephew and his fiance were like, make it funny, make it light, you know, and so everybody was laughing, and it was just this joyful experience. And my aunts and uncles and cousins and my mom were just like, this is who you are. My mom took my hands into her hands and looked at me and she said, you finally found yourself. You finally found who you are. Huge.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Oh, well, this has been an absolute delight, Rachel. And where I would like to steer and end things in our conversation is around one spirit itself. And so I'm sure everyone listening can hear the passion in your voice, which, you know, it's just a part of you and who you are. And you have been a really huge advocate for one spirit way out there in Alaska. So in terms of distance learning, you're one of the more distant, I think, of folk who call in and you know, participate in the One Spirit community. And I wonder, you know, the admissions department is obviously, you know, absolutely, you know, grateful with your efforts. I think the current class has 2 people that you, you know, and I'm not sure how it happened, you know, referred or were responsible for, but I just wonder if you could talk very briefly and maybe, let all of us as grads know, what it is or how it is that you are able to, identify a track. What do you do in your everyday life to bring One Spirit to life out in Anchorage?
Gotcha. Well, one of the most important ways is one of the core principles of Spirit Stone that we established early on was that we were going to tithe 10% of what we bring in from every service back out. And we're like, well, how do we want to do that? And so we agreed that 5% would go to a local 501c3 and 5% would go to One Spirit. And so every month, depending on how many services we have, if we have, every week or whatever, 5% of each Sunday tithes back to One Spirit. So I have been able, I'm so, so grateful. I'm so grateful that I've been able to financially support One Spirit through Spirit Stone. That has been such a huge gift from me to One Spirit for all they've given me. And then the two Alaskans who are attending, one is a very dear friend of mine, and she and I talked at length about this, and she's like, I really want to go. And I was like, go. And so we talked about it, and I encouraged her, and I just found out I'm going to be allowed to be her mentor, which I'm thrilled about. And then another gentleman just found his way into Spirit Stone one day, and thankfully, again, grateful to One Spirit, he found Spirit Stone through the One Spirit alumni site. Like, he went to One Spirit to investigate seminaries because he wanted to go to a place that explored all faiths. He found One Spirit on the internet, sort of adventured into their website, checked for different graduates where one might be close, found me, found Spirit Stone, and came walking in our front door. And
oh boy, talk about a cross reciprocal win-win. Just beautiful.
Absolutely, it was like give and take. It was perfect, and so I'm thrilled that he's going. I just and we've shown the video that the gorgeous video that One Spirit made with the birds flying and Diane's voice talking about One Spirit. We've shown that a couple times at Spirit Stones, just so people know.
My favorite, I think. Yeah,
it's so amazing, and we wanted people to know, who One Spirit is and what they do, and so we talk about it a lot, and so it's constantly being, it's constantly in the conversation, and then my community also knows that there's going to be one Sunday every 2 months that I'm home on the couch at 5:30 a.m. with my laptop open to be with my cohorts so that I can stay connected and continue to grow. And they support that. They're thrilled that I get to keep going deeper so that I can bring more to them. And, I couldn't have asked for a better seminary experience. But I always joke the one thing that I wanted from One Spirit was more. I just wanted more. And so when they started doing Living Our Calling, I'm like, yes. And then in the spring, David's teaching that Rumi class, and I'm like, yes, I'm in. And, the ongoing education and the ongoing connection, I'm just so grateful for technology and just that they keep doing what they're doing. So, encouraging people to go and keeping it on the front burner so that everyone knows where I got what I got, and why this passion has been so fueled is because I've got a community behind me saying, go, Rachel, go, keep doing it. And I'm so grateful. So grateful for that.
All right. Well, on that note, much appreciation. I'm feeling very full at this moment, and really is an exciting story. And I'd like to just give you a chance to give your email address, I won't go that far, but I can say that www.spiritstone, one word, spiritstone-ak.com is the website to your spiritual center. And is there a way for grads to be in touch with you? Because there's so much experience that you might be willing to share that people might want to reach out to you. Can they reach you through Spirit Stone?
Absolutely.
Website?
There's they can reach me through the website, my email, and also an info email. There's also a secured confidential prayer email, all through the website. You can also find us on Facebook, Spirit Stone, one word, Spirit Stone Spiritual Center on Facebook. Our talks are also on YouTube. It's hard to find them actually on YouTube. So if you go through the website or Facebook. It's easier to find them. But yeah, just contact me directly. I'm also on Facebook as Rev Rachel. That's one word, Rev Rachel Hollander. So yeah, reach out, connect, find the website, find us on Facebook, and yeah, let's use technology for the good that it is to make this puddle of our world a little smaller so we can all be in it together.
Amen. On that note, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you so much to our graduate community. We appreciate you and look forward to being in touch again next month.
Yes, thank
Bye.
you.